You have progressed well, Ninja Guy. I feel you may be ready to defeat the Minotaur and earn your ninja-ness. Keep your wits about you, Ninja Guy. You must first find a way to open the demon portal to his lair.
Too easy for Ninja.
Hi, in this movie I'm going to show you guys how to quickly get started with Localized Dialogs. This is pretty much a new Unity project. I've just imported the package, and the only thing you need to add before you can start working with dialogues is to just make sure there's a game tag set up. So you'd go to the tag manager and just make sure there's a tag called Dialog Controller with a capital D and a capital C, and as long as that tag is in there, it doesn't have to be the first tag, just as long as it's there somewhere, the system is fine and everything should just work out of the box. So the first thing we're going to do is create a dialog UI object, and we can easily do this by going to the black zombie menu, Localized Dialogs, create new dialog UI. So you'll see the object pop up in the scene now, and this is just an object that has three components: an audio source, the dialog UI, which basically handles how the UI is shown through the dialogues, the localization component, which we use to set up the languages and what the system uses internally to figure out what language the user's device is running. So what we can do here at this point is we can decide what languages we're going to support in our game. So, you know, for the purpose of this demonstration, let's say we're going to use English and Chinese. So that's fine, and we'll also set this as the build template. There's more info about what the build templates do in the documentation, but for now, let's just check that. Okay, so that's the main setup of the UI. Let's actually try and build a dialogue and see how we go. So the next thing we'll do, back to the same menu, we're going to create a new dialogue. So this is where it gets pretty interesting, because here is where we get to use the pretty cool custom editors, which makes it really quick to get started and create new dialogues. Okay, so the first thing we've got up here is a dialog controller. That's pretty much the back end of the whole system for each dialogue thread. So this is what controls the flow and the inner workings of each sequence of dialogue. So basically we can say whether this is going to be an autoplay dialogue or whether we're going to control it manually. For now we'll just make this autoplay, which means that no scripting is required. Basically, as soon as this object is in the scene, it's going to launch the first dialog ID, which we've set up over here as the start ID is 1. And we can see here in the dialog screen, this first dialog screen has a dialog ID of 1. So that's basically saying when this is loaded into the scene, it's going to play automatically after 1 second. And the first ID, the first dialog screen that's going to play is this one, the one with dialog ID 1. Okay, so let's start setting up a dialogue. So here we can say, for example, actor name, I don't know, invisible guy, and we can say this is our first screen. We can also have an audio path. If we have an audio file in our resources folder somewhere, we can just type a string path to that, and we can load that dynamically at runtime. The good thing about that is it's pretty cool with memory usage, because it will only load audio clips when you actually need them, so they're not always in your scene all the time, which is great for mobile. We'll leave that blank for now. We've also got an audio pitch perimeter we can change. So obviously 1 would be the default pitch. Anything lower than that will be kind of deeper, anything higher will be more squeakier, I guess. We can also give it a portrait icon. So what we can do is we'll find something down here, we'll just use the tick. So okay, the next thing you want to do is click over into the Navigate tab. So yeah, I should have probably explained this part. The dialog screen is split up into 4 sections. The dialog itself, which is basically the content of your screen, of what's being said. We've got the Navigate tab, which basically allows us to control the flow of the screen. So for example, we could say, is this screen just going to be a simple message, or do we want to give the user some kind of yes or no question? Right now it's just a simple dialogue we want to show. So we're saying the next screen is 0 because it's not actually going anywhere right now. And we just check to say that this is the last dialogue. After this dialogue finishes playing, we just kind of want to get rid of it and want it to stop after that. So we can even say destroy at end too, and that basically means we're going to destroy the game object. If we go over to the Actions tab, we'll be able to see that we've got some quite handy actions at our disposal that we can play either at the beginning of a screen or at the end of the screen. So for example, we can create objects when the screen launches or just as it ends. We can activate other game objects when the screen launches or when the screen ends, or we can destroy certain game objects when this screen ends too. So quite useful ways of sequencing a chain of events. So for example, if you're doing an RPG game or something, for example, at the end of the screen that could say, congratulations, you found 50 gold or something, you can create an object at the end where you can have a prefab get loaded into the scene where your player gets an extra 50 gold. So it's pretty useful stuff. This will help out quite a lot. And it takes out more scripting from your side. So always a good thing. Lastly, we have the Localized tab. And here we can choose which language we'll be localizing. English is always considered the default language in this system. So you'll always see the English translation on the left and the localized versions on the right. So for example, here we have something that just says this is our first screen, which I'll copy, and I'll jump over to Google Translate, which I've already done here, and I don't know if this is right or not because I don't speak Chinese, but we'll jump back over here, paste in the translation. Hopefully it's correct. Probably not the best way of doing translations, but you know, for the purpose of this demo it will suffice. We can also override audio. So for example, if we had localized audio for our dialogues, which we would put here, we don't in this scene, in this screen, sorry. But you could do just by clicking this, you can write in a new path to the localized audio and even override its pitch too, if you need to. So that's there too. And you can do this independently for every localized language, which is awesome. So here we should have enough set up so that screen should work. So basically what's going to happen now, once we press play, this dialogue will kick in. It's set to autoplay on its own, and when it's done, as we've set up in the Navigate tab, after this screen is finished showing for 3 seconds, it's going to end the dialogue and get rid of the game object. So let's try it out. Hopefully it all works. So I'm going to press play. We've got the screen come in. This is our first screen. Fades out, and now the game object has been destroyed too. So working exactly how we wanted it to. Just expanding on the idea so you guys can get to see how to build up more complicated dialogues. I'll show you how to add a new screen to this dialogue thread. Simply we can click the green plus sign over here, and a new dialogue screen is shown underneath, and it also updates our dialogue ID to be number 2. It's important if you're kind of manually deleting and re-adding dialogue screens, you want to keep an eye on this because, you know, make sure that they're always unique. But generally the system does a pretty good job on keeping that organized for you. But just something to note there. Okay, so on this one we're gonna say another invisible guy, and we're gonna say this is our second screen, and let's find where we had these icons. We'll just drag in a Ninja Guy icon. For those of you who haven't played it, it's pretty cool. Go check it out. We used the exact same system, or an earlier version of it anyway, for Ninja Guy on the iPhone. So it's a proof of principle that the system works anyway. But yeah, moving on. We'll localize this too. So we'll jump over to the Localize tab, because we'll test it out in Chinese in just a second. So this is our second screen. Copy paste this back in. Hopefully that translation makes sense. But there's one thing we need to modify here. We've already set up the first dialog screen to stop after it's showed its first screen. But obviously now that we have a second screen that we want to show, we need to modify the changes, the setup, sorry. So we're going to jump to the navigate tab in both of them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually change next screen to say 2, and we're going to uncheck last dialog. So what's happening now is we're saying when this screen is done, we want to move to dialog ID number 2. And that's what it's going to do. This screen's going to finish and it's going to jump over to this screen. So with this one, we want to now set this one up to be the last dialog. We'll set it up to be 3 seconds as well, that's fine. So now this dialog will show when it's done, it will move over to this one. And when this is done, this is marked as the last dialog and it will close everything down. So let's test to see if it's all working. Press play. Okay, Invisible Guy says this is our first screen. Another Invisible Guy, this is our second screen. Cool, so everything's working. So that's cool, pretty easy to follow I think so far. To add some complexity into your games, if you so desire, you can even do this. We'll modify this to say, rather than this is our first screen, we'll change this to make a choice. And we're going to change the navigation section, so we're going to use yes or no options. So rather than it just say next to move on to the next screen, we're going to ask the user to make a yes or no choice. So what we'll do here is we'll say if they press yes, move to screen number 2. If they say no, move to screen number 3. So here we'll just update and we'll say the user said yes, and make sure this is the last screen too. And over here, set this up to be the last screen. Yep, and we'll say the user said no. Hopefully you guys are following. So we've got another Invisible Guy. Actually, just to make this simple, we can just remove these. You don't actually have to have headers or dialog text filled out. If you want to have some kind of status message or like a notification and use the system for that kind of thing, that's fine. Whatever makes sense for your game. So let's just try it out like this. So what we've got now, just to recap, we'll move over to the navigation tabs and all of them. The first thing it's going to say is make a choice. If the user says yes, we're going to move over to this screen. If the user says no, we'll move to dialog ID number 3. And both 2 and 3 are the last dialogues and they'll both end there. So if we press play, hopefully, let's make a choice. We have no yes. So if we say no, the user said no. Run it again. We say yes, the user said yes. So pretty easy to understand, pretty easy to work with this. You can even make your dialogues multi-threaded. You could kind of have a choice that leads into another choice, that leads into another choice, if you want to get super crazy with it. The good thing is each dialogue object is self-contained. Just to show you kind of how you can use this with script, we'll set up a quick, just a test prefab. We'll just call this test dialog, and we'll make this dialog object a prefab. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press play. The scene is practically empty, there's nothing going on. So what you can do with script, if you've set up the dialogues to be autoplay, you would basically just instantiate a prefab, and essentially this is what happens. It will just load, it will just work. So it's really easy just to set up loads of different kind of dialogues and stuff, and your game will just load them in when you need it, and it removes it when it's done. So if we move over to work with some of the localization stuff, which I think we've neglected so far, we'll put the test dialog back in. I've made a few changes here that I forgot about along the way. Let's just quickly update these with Google Translate so we don't offend any Chinese speakers that might be watching, rather Mandarin speakers that may be watching. So make a choice. The user said yes. Let's copy that in. Just said yes, and the user said no. Okay. So what we can do now, we'll jump to Dialog UI, and you can see we've got Chinese and English set up like we did earlier on. So we can actually pretend to be a different system language. So under debug language, we can choose Chinese. So now we're basically working in an emulation mode where the system thinks it's going to be Chinese. So the Chinese localizations should work. So if I press play, we should see, there we go, the UI is now working in simplified Mandarin. So I think that's no. We can see that apparently says the user said no. And that's it. That's cool. Everything's working. Just a few more notes to finish this little movie off about the GUI, because I'm sure a lot of you are going to ask whether you can customize the look of it to better match your game, and the answer is of course yes. I'm going to jump over to the demo that we have included with the package. I'm actually going to save this scene. Just put that test. Alright, so we're now in the demo, and the demo is pretty cool. It shows you guys lots of different ways to interact with the dialog object. So for example, this one is probably a better example of what you can expect to do in your own games.
Now you see me, now you die!
Hey man, I already told you to get the hell away from me!
Ninja never look back!
So we stole a few quotes out of Ninja Guy for that one, but you know, it kind of gives you an idea of the kind of cool little cutscenes you can have in your games, and it does make a lot of difference. I'm just going to show you guys a few of the built-in modifications. They're not crazy, but they're there just to kind of, you know, act as an example, as a starting point for you guys to see what you can do. So we're going to just launch any old dialogue here. So we're going to pause it, and I'm going to click on the modified skin and click on next so that the UI call gets updated. So here's a skin that we did. You can see that we've lowered the text, we've you know, we've changed the background, we've changed the colors of the buttons, etc. You can take it as far as you need to take it. You know, you can change the fonts, you can change colors, you can go crazy, because basically they work with Unity's GUI skins. So you know, you can just get into that, start changing things, you know, and it's as simple as that really. I can go quickly find, there we go, there's modified skin 1, I believe we're using. So down here you can see the parts of the GUI skin that need to be modified are the buttons, which are of course the buttons that are used for the next yes no tabs. We have our custom styles for the dialog text, which is the text here, the header text, which is this one, and the background box, which is the big blue box at the moment. So it really is as simple as that. You can just change what you need to change. You can use the content offset to move things around from each other. And something I don't think I've mentioned yet is that the UI is actually resolution independent. So you can move things around and the UI will always work. Will always stick to the same ratios of the screen. It's actually optimized best for mobile devices. It uses the iPhone 4's Retina display as its native resolution, and all other resolutions for desktops it basically scales up. So none of this crazy, you need to make new UI styles for Android, for desktops. You build once, it works everywhere. You can go crazy if you want to make things pixel perfect on every target device. You can. There's no reason that you can't work on GUI skins and make tweaks for yourself to make those happen. But out of the box, it uses the 960 by 640 resolution of the iPhone 4's Retina display as its kind of base. And from our tests, as we've made during my time at Immunity Studios, we did our original on the iPhone. We had Ninja Guy on the iPhone, on the iPad. We made desktop versions for the PC and Mac, and we used the same system, and it was working great for us. So it is industry proven. It does work, I promise. But yeah, I hope you guys like what you see here. Feel free to check out the demo in the scene and get a feel for some of the scripting commands. As you can see, you don't even need to script if you're using autoplay dialogues, but there are only literally 2 scripting commands that you even need to use when you're making custom dialogue systems and integrating it in your own way. So I hope you guys like what you see. If you guys need any help, feel free to contact me if you have any suggestions or any questions, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.